Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I've spent the last month or so playing Kingdom Come Deliverance, not once, but twice, and the sad part is, it took me 4 tries to finally let it click. But when it clicked, it clicked. Hi, I'm Ambro, an inconsistent YouTube creator who loves to play and talk about games. I need to spend the next few minutes here glazing and explaining Kingdom Come Deliverance because it deserves it. Before I get started, please be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get allegedly instant notifications on when the next video drops. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. Woo! Playing Kingdom Come Deliverance as a grown adult with a family, a mortgage, and bills to pay made me feel the same way I felt when I played Skyrim and Oblivion for the first time when I was a wee lad. That's the best way I can describe it. A little backstory. I wasn't joking when I said I beat the game twice in the last month or so. I'm a boomer who likes to own physical games, so I bought the Royal Edition for PS4 and then played it on the PS5, then replayed it on my mid-range PC because it was that good, and the game also looks phenomenal. It was great on PS5 too, but to my knowledge it's locked to 1080p 30 FPS on there, but the game was still awesome. Anyway, the sequel, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, recently released, which you may or may not have seen, and is coming out to glowing reviews. I've already started playing and only found time to stop and write the script. Warhorse Studios, who's based in Prague, deserves all the success it's been having. Let me get this out of the way now. When I first tried KCD, I couldn't get into it. I kept seeing all the rave reviews of the game, but I was just not able to get past its systematic and methodical nature. And after doing a little bit of research, I realized I wasn't the only one. Kingdom Come Deliverance is, for all intents and purposes, an immersive sim, and I'll explain what that is shortly. KCD 1 came out in 2018, and when you first saw it, I bet you were like me. You said, oh man, cool, I can be a knight in the Middle Ages, I can drink, I can ride horses, I can sheath and unsheath my sword. Alright, cool. And you bought the game, and then you tried it for yourself. And then you started walking, and walking, and you kept walking, and walking. And then by the time you did combat, you got your ass whooped. Then you got caught stealing, and you got put in jail. Your reputation went down. Then a villager commented on your body odor, and you took it personally because you were having a bad mental day in real life. You keep seeing red, you keep seeing game over, and you get that what's the point feeling. Maybe this game's not for me. But then you reload the save, and you try again, and you try a different way. Maybe you go down a different alleyway, or maybe perhaps you talked your way out of it, or you bribed your way out of it. And there it was, it finally clicked. And this is where the term immersive sim comes into play. So let's back up for a second. What defines an immersive sim? They're usually characterized by several key elements that differentiate them from other game types. So first one is that at their heart, immersive sims are defined by their use of interacting reactive systems that respond meaningfully to the player actions. Unlike other games that funnel players through, predetermined paths, immersive sims provide tools and systems that allow for creative problem solving and emergent gameplay beyond what developers explicitly designed. As one Reddit user put it, immersive sims offer an interactive simulation of a world, where if you think you should be able to do something, you most likely can. And that rings completely true in KCD 1 and 2. Another aspect of immersive sims is that they typically place players in these very carefully designed locations that make sense as actual places rather than just a game level. The environments are designed with logical architecture and minimal gamey elements like an invisible wall or a floating object. Things that you see in a game and you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me I'm playing a video game. I'll give you an example. I've been playing The Division 2 recently as my turn my brain off and go see big numbers type of game when I need a break from the more story-focused ones. And The Division 2 is a cover-based shooter, and whenever you go to any of the really detailed locations in the game, you immediately see that artificial waist-high cover. I get it's part of the game, but that's what I mean by gamey elements. Another aspect is that the game world tracks and responds to the player actions in meaningful ways. NPCs have daily routines and react to the player's behavior, creating a sense that the world exists independently of the player. Now, with all the above said, the sheer nature and level of control you have over the protagonist Henry of Skalitz and the systematic repercussions of those actions is what makes this game tick. The game has no difficulty sliders, and you cannot save at all moments of the game. There's a hardcore mode, but I'm convinced that mode is for masochists. KCD is an immersive sim/RPG where choices you make impact the world and, more importantly, the NPCs around you. For example, if you get caught stealing, your reputation in that town will go down. This affects everything from prices at the vendor to how alert all NPCs are in that area to how NPCs react to you when you try to talk to them. Will they be nasty or willing to help? That depends entirely on if you get caught doing the copious amounts of stealing that the game will require of you. Many RPGs claim to have systems as deep as the ones in KCD and subsequently KCD 2, but then they really fall short. Let's take Cyberpunk 2077 or even The Witcher 3 as an example. Cyberpunk 2077 was originally touted as an action RPG, and then later their marketing language was changed to reflect being an action adventure game. Now, I say this as someone who's played Cyberpunk 3 different times at 3 different patches, and I can honestly tell you it's an incredible game, and CDPR remains at the top of the devs who are able to tell a gripping story as well as making a generally awesome game. CP2077 is awesome, especially following patch 2.1. The combat is fluid and satisfying, the story and writing is excellent, and the world that CDPR has created from scratch and the lore is unbelievable. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a hit. You get dialogue choices and skill trees with focuses on different approaches. There's stealth and non-violent approaches, but there's just something missing. When you finish going through a building and kill all the baddies without talking to anyone, that's really it. You loot the enemies, you sprint outside, call your car, or Roach, and go do your thing. Maybe you'll loot a healing item and you're back at full health. Sure, maybe you took down everyone without a gun, but the outcome is still the same as if you did use a gun. And if I die and have to redo it, I'm probably just going to try doing it the same way. Now let's look at a similar situation in Kingdom Come Deliverance. You just marked your objective in your journal. You go to the mission area, only it doesn't give you the exact location. It just gives you an area to look around for yourself. You'll get there with no other clues. You see an NPC standing around. You chat with them for a second. They speak nervously like they're hiding something. But because you're dressed like a noble, you're able to pry a bit more information out of them, only to find out you're in the wrong town. So they send you down the road to a neighboring village, and on the way you get randomly jumped by a group of angry bandits. You manage to take them down, but your health is low and you're bleeding out. You now have to pull yourself together to limp to the nearest town to sleep it off. But now you're hungry and you recently spent all your money buying that new horse saddle that you so desperately needed. So you try to steal some food, but then you get caught and go to jail and realize you still have a ton of that stolen stuff on you. So when you go to jail, they take that stuff from you, but you have a perk that saves some items in your pockets. This entire situation could have ended differently based on just a few choices you made throughout the process. Maybe you got a disguise and walked into the guarded area unnoticed, or maybe you slip poison into the food of the guardhouse and wait for the chaos to unfold to take your chance. This all goes back to that definition of what immersive sims are and how they make you as the player react. Now, this next comment is totally anecdotal, but honestly it feels like when I play other big current AAA games, specifically ones that express themselves as RPGs, I feel like every company is looking at the metrics and just saying, how can we appeal to the absolutely broadest spectrum of gamer? Because business is about making money. I totally get that. Warhorse Studios and KCD feel like they started from the ground up with, okay, here are the role-playing systems. How do we build a game on top of that and around that? As opposed to just layering an RPG light system on top of the game and calling it a day. I've noticed that some games like the Horizon series from Guerrilla Games get this response sometimes to new players. Don't get me wrong, I loved Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, and they're not advertised as RPGs, which made those games feel like pretty bog standard open world games with those RPG light elements just sprinkled on top. The Assassin's Creed RPG trilogy, as it's often referred to, is guilty of doing this too. Do those games have dialogue options? Yes. Do they have any meaningful impact on what happens after the conversation is done? Not really for most of the conversations, and there's usually only one or two ways the mission will play out. The overlapping of carefully designed subsystems is what makes KCD such a great entry into the RPG pantheon. For example, in most towns, if you walk around without a torch at night, guards will say something to you and remind you that walking around without a torch is illegal. Walk around without one for long enough and the guards will stop you and fine you. Oh, you're chatting to someone who respects your nobility, but you're dressed like a beggar and you smell like fresh manure? Tough cookies. You need to get across the map, but your character is sleepy? Better find a bed to rest. These are just some examples of how these overlapping systems affect your decision-making process as well as influence the general flow of the game. I genuinely feel like I have to engage my brain to play KCD because there are multiple systems at play at any given time. Whereas with games like Assassin's Creed, I kind of just turn my brain off, go to a pretty area, kill some baddies, hear the dialogue with no real choice, and I just move on. So why is it that despite the game's commercial success, is it so hard for people to get into? Warhorse Studios just announced a major sales milestone for both KCD1 and KCD2. KCD1 just passed 10 million lifetime sales, and KCD2 just passed 3 million sales only 3 months after launch, which is just insane. Here's the way I look at it. As someone who grew up being privileged enough to try a wide variety of games ranging from Dragon Age Origins to the latest and greatest AAA games like King Kong, KCD takes inspiration from the point-and-click RPGs that trailblazed the genre before it. For starters, everything is basically done by a dice roll. Now that may seem like something obvious for an RPG, but there are a lot of games that tout themselves as RPGs and don't use these tried-and-true RPG mechanics. I mean, for God's sakes, in KCD2, if you try to play hardcore mode, you have to pass an initial dice roll just to get into the game. And if developers truly wanted to return to the glory days of real RPGs with unique systems and subsystems, I highly recommend you give KCD1 a try, as it goes on sale pretty regularly with the Steam sales for under $30, and even sometimes I've seen the base game go for just $7 US, which is just insane for the value for the game you're getting. The game even runs on Nintendo Switch, so it quite literally runs on every platform except for mobile. But that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it or you found it informative, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to get allegedly instant notifications on when the next video drops. Let me know what you thought about it and if you've played KCD before. Has this video given you the confidence to give it a go, or are you just a huge fan returning to the game? If you want to get in touch with me directly, be sure to follow me on Blue Sky. We're so close to 1,000 subs, and I appreciate all of the early support. This is Ambro, keeping you plugged into the games that matter. Peace out.